What if I told you that most of what you think about yourself, about the world, about life itself, isn't actually true, not because you're unintelligent or uninformed, but because the very instrument you're using to understand reality, your mind, is wired to deceive you? It's a strange thing to realize that the voice in your head, the one you've trusted your whole life, might not have your best interests at heart, and yet that's the first crack in the illusion, the first step toward seeing the ego's greatest trick, convincing you that it is you. We grow up believing that our thoughts are sacred, that they reflect who we are, that because they come from our minds, they must be reliable, logical, honest, but thought is not truth, thought is strategy. Defense, reaction. Thought is often fear, dressed up in the costume of reason. The ego, the false self we construct to survive, lives in our thoughts. It whispers stories of who we are and what we need to be safe. It builds identities out of past wounds and future anxieties. And it does this so convincingly that we rarely stop to ask, who is actually thinking these thoughts? The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of things. In other words, suffering isn't born in the world, it's born in the mind. The problem isn't reality itself, it's the narrative we build around it. Take, for example, a breakup. Two people experience the same event, the end of a relationship. One feels liberated, the other feels shattered. Same reality, different internal stories. The mind turns pain into identity. It turns uncertainty into threat, and it does it so seamlessly we don't even notice. Modern psychology confirms this. Cognitive distortions, like catastrophizing black and white thinking or personalization, are all ways the ego shapes our perception to protect itself. But what's terrifying is that these distortions don't feel like distortions. They feel like truth. Have you ever caught yourself spiraling in self-doubt, replaying the same fear over and over again? That voice that says you're not good enough, that people don't really like you, that you'll fail if you try. That's not truth. That's ego. That's your wounded inner world trying to predict pain before it happens, trying to control outcomes by imagining the worst, trying to stay safe by staying small. But here's the paradox. The more you believe these thoughts, the more they shape your reality. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as your ego needs it to be in order to survive. And often, the ego survives by keeping you afraid. Buddhism has a concept called Maya, the illusion. It teaches that the mind creates a veil between us and what's real, not out of malice, but out of habit, out of attachment. The ego builds this veil by clinging to labels. Success, failure, worthy, unworthy, loved, unloved. It feeds on identity because identity is predictable, and the ego would rather be a somebody, even a suffering somebody, than face the vastness of who we really are beneath the thoughts. We don't want to be free. We want to be certain, and thought gives us the illusion of certainty, even when it's wrong. That's the trick. But there's a deeper problem. Not only do we believe our thoughts, we identify with them. We become them. I am anxious. I am broken. I am not enough. These are not facts. They are passing clouds in the sky of consciousness. But we turn them into permanent labels. We fuse with them. And in doing so, we shrink ourselves to fit the story. The ego is clever. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It says, "This is just who you are. You've always been this way. You can't change." And maybe the most dangerous lie, if you stop listening to me, something terrible will happen. So we keep listening. We obey the fear. We follow the script, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because pain feels familiar, and the ego finds safety in the known. But here's what most people never realize. you are not your thoughts. Asterisk asterisk, you are the one asterisk watching asterisk them. There's a stillness behind the noise, a quiet awareness that notices every mental movement. It was there before the thoughts began, and it will be there after they fade. You've felt it, haven't you, in those rare moments of silence? The breath between distractions, the pause in the storm, that's you, not the fear, not the voice, not the story. You are the awareness observing it all. The philosopher Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am." But maybe he was wrong. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe we think asterisk because asterisk we've forgotten who we are. Think about how easily the mind can be manipulated. Propaganda, advertising, social media algorithms. They all hijack the ego by feeding it identity. Politics becomes personality. Beliefs become tribal markers. Opinion becomes self-worth. And when someone challenges your ideas, it asterisk feels asterisk like they're attacking you. Not because they are, but because the ego has wrapped itself around the thought. This is how wars start, how relationships end, how we become strangers to ourselves, because we've never learned to hold our thoughts lightly, to question them, to observe without attaching, to say, that's an interesting thought, instead of this thought is me. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That's the essence of this trick. The ego hides in the unconscious, in knee-jerk reactions, in assumptions, in emotional patterns that feel like instinct but are really programming. The mind repeats what is unresolved, and what's unresolved becomes who we think we are. So how do you escape? You don't, not in the traditional sense. The goal isn't to silence all thoughts. That's impossible. The goal is to asterisk, see through them asterisk, to develop awareness so sharp that the ego can no longer hide behind automatic thinking. Meditation helps, journaling helps, therapy helps, but at the core, it's about developing a relationship with your own mind, not as a master to obey, but as a tool to understand. When a painful thought arises, instead of merging with it, ask, asterisk, who is noticing this? Asterisk, when fear takes over, ask, asterisk, is this reality, or is this a memory disguised as a warning? Asterisk, over time, the ego loses its grip, not because you've destroyed it, but because you've stopped believing it without question. You'll begin to see the patterns, the cycles, the familiar inner voices that all say the same things in slightly different tones, and you'll begin to realize that they're not personal, they're just echoes. Old scripts running on autopilot. Freedom doesn't come when you finally fix yourself. It comes when you no longer mistake your thoughts for who you are. That's the real awakening. Not some mystical moment of enlightenment, but the quiet, steady realization that the voice in your head is just one perspective, and not always the wisest one. You are not broken. You are not flawed for having doubt. You're just human, and the human mind is messy, unpredictable, and often terrified. But the moment you stop blindly trusting your thoughts, something incredible happens. You create space, space to choose, space to breathe, space to feel without being overwhelmed by the story about the feeling. In that space, a new kind of truth emerges, not from thought, but from presence, not from ego, but from awareness. So the next time your mind tells you a story, pause, listen, and then ask, asterisk, is this the truth, or is this the ego's trick? Asterisk, if this message stirred something in you. If you've ever felt trapped by your own thoughts or questioned the stories you tell yourself, you're not alone, and that means there's hope. If you found value in this, take a moment to reflect on the thoughts you've believed without questioning. Share your insights in the comments, like the video if it resonated. And subscribe if you're on a journey of awakening, truth, and self-liberation. Your awareness is your power, use it wisely,